Hello everyone, I'm Food for Dogs, and today I want to talk a little bit about Final Fantasy Type-0. This was a particular request from my good friend Disa in Norway. Hello Disa. And she wanted to see in particular the box I recently managed to acquire, the collector's edition for Final Fantasy Type-0 HD. I obviously had to buy it second-hand from the online second-hand market. I found it somewhere on Amazon. And we're going to have a little unboxing of that. But first I just wanted to talk a bit about the history of Type-0 because it is quite interesting. The game was of course originally developed for the PSP, so Sony's very successful portable little machine. The problem was that it was only ever released in Japan. And of course all the Final Fantasy fans in the West were clamouring to have a localised version, obviously, but it never came. And that was a huge disappointment. In the end, we did get the game localised, but not the handheld version as we had all expected and hoped, but rather on the PSP. It finally arrived. So if we look back a bit at the history, Final Fantasy Type-0 was released in Japan in October 2011, so quite a way back, both physically and digitally. And at the time it received a review score, the Famitsu score, was 39 out of 40, which is pretty rare and you'd have to say an amazing score. In the first week of sale, Final Fantasy Type-0 sold nearly 500,000 copies in Japan. Now you can see from that that was a big thing. So initially it looked like it would be very successful. However, at the time the PSP was coming to the end of its life cycle and Sony was preparing the PS Vita to step in and take over. And later on the producer of Type-0, called Hajime Tabata, commented that the main reasons for the game not being localized for the West were the flagging Western PSP market and uncertainties surrounding the Vita's commercial success. So we have very early indications here about concerns surrounding the Vita, and as we know, sadly that later proved to be true. So maybe it was an astute decision on their part, who knows. But those were the reasons why it never came west in a portable format, either PSP or Vita, but later of course we did get the version for the PS4. Now, that was originally announced in 2014 and came out in 2015. Mr. Tabata said he would quite like to continue the Type-0 series as a sort of sub-series to Final Fantasy if this game proved commercially successful. Well, I think the jury would have to be out on that one. I'm not sure, I'm not really qualified to interpret sales figures, but I did look it up a bit and the sales in Japan were initially very promising, but it then tailed off very quickly and performed very poorly in Japan. It only sold 60% of its shipment there. However, worldwide, it sold at least 1 million copies, so most of those were sold, obviously, in the West, outside of Japan, in the West and other territories, I should say. So it hasn't performed poorly, but maybe not as well as they had hoped. That is what I think. As you're probably aware, you can go into any games shop and you will probably see a few copies of this hanging around, being sold off at very steep discount prices. You can sometimes pick up a copy of Type-0 for just a few bucks or a few pounds, literally. And the discounting set in quite early after the game was released. So they've clearly had excess stock and are still trying to get rid of it. So I'm not totally convinced about the success of this game. It had, the reviews were not bad, but neither were they stellar. There wasn't really a huge amount of buzz around this game, I don't think. So it sort of disappeared a bit, I feel, which is a shame, because I bought a copy a while ago because it was hanging around cheaply and I thought I might as well get the physical copy. And when I started playing it, I realized that I actually liked it a lot. So I went and bought the guide. I love having guides anyway. I collect them a bit as well. And yes, that's always nice to be able to browse around, remember the gameplay, look up the characters, look up stats, all the sort of stuff us nerds like to do, you know. Yes, so it's not a bad guide. It's organised like they all are, and with you can use it as a reference, which is very handy, really. So I like having the books around. So it's now time, I think, to unbox the collector's edition. Was there anything I think we've covered everything here on the history side. So I'll now take off the sleeve and we'll show you the back. As you can see, it is quite scuffed and frayed around the edges, clearly used, and yeah, okay, but you know, that's the only way I could get a collector's edition, and I believe fortunately the contents are in good condition. I haven't really looked at them too closely yet, I've only just received it. We have here the beautiful artwork, as always, with Final Fantasy. I assume it's Amano, but I haven't actually checked that. And it's just plain white on the back. So we'll open up the box. And sorry, I've got it the wrong way round. This way round for you guys. That makes more sense, doesn't it? So it's a lovely open up and fold out box, and plastic insert, and the book here right on top. And that would have to be, for me, that's always one of the most important things in a collector's edition. It's really the art book. So we'll have a look at that. And as you can see, the colour reproduction looks vibrant. It looks good to me. While the game obviously had to be remastered, they had to do a lot of work to transfer it from the low resolution portable format to the upscaled HD format. And I believe the company who did most of that work is called Hexadrive, a Japanese company. They did most of their work was graphics, and I think it looks really really lovely. Lots and lots of detail, beautiful detail. The game is, of course, when you play it nowadays on the PS4, you still see that it is essentially an upscaled version of a portable game. But once you get engrossed in the story and the gameplay, I don't think that really matters too much. I don't know if you've played Final Fantasy Type-0, but the opening introductory cutscene is possibly one of the most heart-rending ones I have ever watched. Really, really sad, and introduces the dark themes of that story early on. I won't say any more in case you haven't seen it, but it can be quite distressing for animal lovers, I'd have to say. So, a beautiful art book, very well produced, 80 pages, hardbound. I'm really, really pleased with that. And I'll take a look now at this manga. And the back. And this was a bit of a surprise. I don't think I've ever had a manga book before in a limited or collector's edition. So this is quite nice. It'll be some nice bedside reading. I'll just show you the opening. This is the title page. And that's how it starts. And that'll be a nice read. That's something a bit special, I feel. I just wanted to mention that the box art, which I showed you earlier, is all by everything, the whole design for this collector's edition. They use the illustration of Yoshitaka Amano. That's also his work, of course, like everything else. Famous illustrator for Final Fantasy. So that's a lovely touch, that they got him to do the artwork. There's just something special about Yoshitaka Amano. On this side, all we have is some art cards, I believe. Yes. There we are. And while my sterling Cameraman, PoodlePa. I'll put that here. He will show you the cards in detail while I just skip off, and I forgot I've got the steel case already on my shelf, so I'll just scootle off. And the final pièce de résistance, the steel book. It has a beautiful burnished, slightly coppery golden colour. And inside we have, apart from the usual paperwork, the game itself on the right and a composer selection of tracks on the left disc. So this all looks to be in good condition. I have no complaints. Can't remember how I put it in. Anyway, I need to. That's it. That's what's in the box. Disa, I hope you're happy that you've seen it now. Anyone else watching, I hope you enjoyed it. That's Final Fantasy Type-0. If you haven't given it a try yet, I would say it's definitely worth giving it a go. Yeah, I would recommend it. I really love it. If it's an action RPG, it's real-time battles. Just go in and have fun with it. It's a good game. Okay, thank you very much for watching. I'm Food for Dogs. Keep well. I'll see you around. Bye-bye.